After breaking through to the Great Saint stage, Zhao Kuan's true essence also underwent earth-shattering changes. www.vodtw.com. At the very least, compared to the true essence at the peak of the Middle Saint stage, the true essence at the early Great Saint stage was indeed worlds apart. Whoosh! Facing the combined efforts of Hong Gang, Wang Feishuan, and the other four, Zhao Kuan raised his hand and struck down with a single palm. Vast true essence surged, forming a palm print like a small mountain, enveloping Hong Gang and the four others. Hong Gang and the four others condensed their domains with true essence, resisting with all their might, holding nothing back. At this point, even if they wanted to hold back, it was impossible, because they were facing a Great Saint stage powerhouse. Although the opponent had only recently broken through to the Great Saint stage, in essence, he was already a Great Saint stage powerhouse. While there was only one step between the early Great Saint stage and the peak of the Middle Saint stage, the difference between the two was like that between a fish and a dragon. If the peak of the Middle Saint stage was a fish, then the early Great Saint stage was an existence that had crossed the dragon gate and transformed into a dragon. Boom! As Zhao Kuan's palm struck down, the domains that Hong Gang and the four others had barely managed to erect in time crumbled like a fragile wall, utterly defeated by Zhao Kuan's palm print. Besides their domains, their techniques and their true essence were also completely crushed by Zhao Kuan's single palm. At this moment, Zhao Kuan, fighting 1 against 4, completely dominated the 4 Middle Saint stage martial cultivators, utterly crushing them. Bang! 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 The bodies of Hong Gang and the 4 others were engulfed by Zhao Kuan's palm wind, all sent flying and crashing to the ground in disarray. Their originally rosy complexions turned ashen at this moment. Facing Zhao Kuan, who had broken through to the early Great Saint stage, their full efforts, even combined, were still no match. So strong. Is this the power of a Great Saint stage powerhouse? 1 peak Middle Saint stage, 2 late Middle Saint stage, 1 mid-Middle Saint stage. The 4 of them combined were not even a match for Zhao Kuan's single blow. Just a few days ago, Zhao Kuan was still Hong Gang's defeated opponent. A few days later, facing the combined efforts of Hong Gang and the other 3, he defeated them all with just 1 strike. The difference between then and now is truly astonishing. Zhao Kuan breaking through to the Great Saint stage is like a fish leaping over the dragon gate, transforming into a dragon in one morning, soaring straight to the heavens. He is going against the heavens. Watching the scene unfold, the onlookers fell silent for a moment before coming to their senses, their gazes all fixed on Zhao Kuan, their voices filled with emotion. Worthless! Zhao Kuan looked down at Hong Gang and the 4 others with a condescending gaze, his face filled with disdain. At the same time, he stepped forward, walking towards the 4 injured individuals who had been sent flying, seemingly intending to do something more. Whoosh! Just then, as if a gust of wind blew by, a figure appeared in Zhao Kuan's path at the opportune moment, blocking him. That's enough. The newcomer casually glanced at Zhao Kuan, his tone calm, but containing an undeniable authority. Duan Ling Tian. The person blocking Zhao Kuan was none other than Duan Ling Tian. As soon as he appeared, he was recognized by the surrounding crowd. He was now widely recognized as the strongest among the younger generation of the Profound Sky Mansion, no longer the unknown youth he was when he first entered the Profound Sky Mansion. Duan Ling Tian. And upon seeing Duan Ling Tian appear, Zhao Ji, who was standing in the distance, couldn't help but narrow his pupils. A chilling, killing intent flickering deep within his eyes. Seeing Duan Ling Tian, Zhao Ji immediately thought of the time Duan Ling Tian publicly slapped him twice, and then he thought of how Duan Ling Tian kicked him out of the Saint Martial secret realm, causing him to miss the divine ability ruins inside. If he had to say who he hated most in his life, it was undoubtedly this Duan Ling Tian. In fact, part of the reason he was so eager to cultivate the devouring demonic art and rapidly increase his strength was to seek revenge on Duan Ling Tian. It's Duan Ling Tian. Is he trying to stand up for Hong Gang and the others? I haven't heard that he has any friendship with Hong Gang. What is he trying to do? Don't forget, Duan Ling Tian and the Zhao family faction are now at odds. Before entering the Saint Martial secret realm, he publicly slapped Zhao Ji twice, greatly humiliating him. After entering the Saint Martial secret realm, he even kicked Zhao Ji out after only 3 days, and then kicked out 3 other disciples from the Zhao family faction. For him, whether he steps up today or not, the Zhao family faction's attitude towards him won't change. I know that. However, even if the Zhao family faction's attitude towards him doesn't change, stepping up at this time seems a bit irrational, doesn't it? Zhao Kuan isn't Zhao Ji. He's a great saint stage existence. Don't forget, Duan Ling Tian might not have a friendship with Hong Gang, but he has a deep friendship with Wang Feishuan. I've seen them together often in the past, so their relationship is probably not simple. I almost forgot about Wang Feishuan. Duan Ling Tian is acting out of anger for a beauty. Gazes shifted, sometimes falling on Duan Ling Tian, sometimes on Wang Feishuan. Wang Feishuan, who was originally in a bad mood due to being injured by Zhao Kuan, felt her spirits lift when she saw Duan Ling Tian appear in time to block Zhao Kuan. Listening to the surrounding discussions and looking at Duan Ling Tian's back, her autumn eyes revealed a watery tenderness. Duan Ling Tian? Are you Duan Ling Tian? Zhao Kuan was initially furious when he saw someone blocking his path, but when he heard the surrounding people say that the young man in front of him was Duan Ling Tian, his heart began to pound rapidly, filled with excitement. He couldn't help but be excited. As a disciple of the Zhao family faction in the profound Sky Mansion, he had long heard that their protector adult in the Zhao family faction had put out a word. Whoever could kill this Duan Ling Tian would become his adopted son or adopted daughter. Because of this, everyone in the entire Zhao family faction went crazy. Many people even kept a close eye on Duan Ling Tian, monitoring him, just waiting for him to go out, or figuring out how to lure him out and kill him. And now, Duan Ling Tian was right in front of him, so close. How could he not be excited? Do I know you? Seeing Zhao Kuan look at him as if he had found some peerless treasure, Duan Ling Tian felt puzzled and asked with a slight frown. It doesn't matter whether you know me or not. As long as you are Duan Ling Tian, that's enough. Taking a deep breath and calming himself slightly, Zhao Kuan looked at Duan Ling Tian as calmly as possible and asked in a deep voice, "What? You're stepping out now. Are you trying to stand up for them?" Duan Ling Tian looked at Zhao Kuan, but did not respond to his words. "You don't have to say it, I can see it." Facing Duan Ling Tian's indifference, Zhao Kuan seemed not to care at all, and spoke to Duan Ling Tian on his own. "You want to stand up for them? That's fine. I'll give you an opportunity. How about it? This opportunity can even allow you to truly stand up for them and vent their anger. I'm listening." Duan Ling Tian finally spoke, his tone as calm as ever. "Think about it. If you fight me here, even if your strength surpasses mine, you can only injure me, not kill or cripple me. So, I'll give you an opportunity. Let's go to the Hall of Life and Death, and have the Elder of the Hall of Life and Death bear witness, sign a life and death contract, and fight to your heart's content. How about that?" Zhao Kuan patiently explained. As he spoke, his tone remained calm, yet it seemed to contain endless temptation. "At that time, even if you kill me, you won't violate the mansion's rules and won't be punished by the law enforcement hall." Hall of Life and Death. Duan Ling Tian raised an eyebrow. He naturally knew what place Zhao Kuan was talking about. In the profound Sky Mansion, whether it was the main mansion or the Heaven, Earth, Profound, and Yellow halls, each had a Hall of Life and Death established. The purpose of the Hall of Life and Death was to provide a place for profound Sky Mansion disciples to freely settle grudges. As long as 2 profound Sky Mansion disciples went to the Hall of Life and Death and signed a life and death contract, they could engage in a battle to the death, unrestricted by the profound Sky Mansion's rules. Generally speaking, only 2 people with a deep life and death grudge against each other would go to the Hall of Life and Death to sign such a contract. And now, Zhao Kun actually proposed that he and Duan Ling Tian sign a life and death contract. Hall of Life and Death. While Duan Ling Tian was surprised by this, everyone else present was also dumbfounded, and the previously noisy atmosphere fell silent at this moment. Zhao Kun actually issued a life and death challenge to Duan Ling Tian. He wants to kill Duan Ling Tian? This was the common thought in everyone's mind. This Zhao Kun, he wants to use this to kill Duan Ling Tian. What a clever scheme, trying to kill Duan Ling Tian legitimately to vent the anger of their Zhao family faction. However, whether to agree or not is Duan Ling Tian's freedom. If I were Duan Ling Tian, I definitely wouldn't agree to such an outrageous proposal. Since this Zhao Kun proposed such a suggestion, he must feel that he has a sure chance of winning. Everyone present, except for Duan Ling Tian himself and Wang Feishuan, including Zhao Kun himself, did not believe that Duan Ling Tian would agree. What? Are you scared? Seeing that Duan Ling Tian didn't respond, Zhao Kun showed a mocking smile, a hint of disdain appearing in his eyes. Zhao Kun. Just then, Zhao Ji transmitted a message to Zhao Kun, saying coldly, "Stop your foolish behavior. I will personally kill this Duan Ling Tian." Although he didn't think Duan Ling Tian would accept Zhao Kun's life and death challenge, he still couldn't help but stop Zhao Kun just to be safe. If it were before, he wouldn't mind Duan Ling Tian being killed by Zhao Kun. But now, he would soon be able to cultivate the devouring demonic art, and surpassing Duan Ling Tian would only be a matter of 1 or 2 years. Therefore, he didn't want Duan Ling Tian to be killed by someone else's hand. He wanted to kill Duan Ling Tian himself to vent his past hatred. For this, he even decided to ask his grandfather to order the revocation of the kill order targeting Duan Ling Tian. Zhao Kun never expected that Zhao Ji would transmit a warning to him, telling him not to provoke Duan Ling Tian anymore, and not to touch Duan Ling Tian. You'll personally kill him for revenge? Do you have that strength? Of course, Zhao Kun only dared to say this question in his heart. However, although he didn't dare to question Zhao Ji, Zhao Kun had no intention of paying attention to him. What a joke! The opportunity to kill Ling Tian was right before his eyes. Unless he was insane, he would never give it up. Once he killed Ling Tian at the life and death stage, he would become the adopted son of the Zhao family lineage's top figure, Zhao Jin. At that time, his status in the Zhao family lineage would be on par with Vice Mansion Master Zhao Deng. Even if he wasn't quite equal to Zhao Deng, he would be higher than everyone else. Even Zhao Ji would have to respectfully call him uncle upon meeting him. Thinking of that scene, Zhao Kun suddenly felt lightheaded with joy, losing any interest in responding to Zhao Ji's words. Actually, it doesn't matter if you don't dare to. I can understand. Seeing that Duan Ling Tian didn't respond, Zhao Kun spoke with a faint smile, as if it were nothing if Duan Ling Tian didn't dare to accept his life and death battle invitation. However, no matter how one looked at it, his smile was incredibly wretched. His eyes, even more so, revealed a condescending contempt and disdain. After speaking, Zhao Kun seemingly hadn't had enough and continued, "To be able to sire such a cowardly son, I imagine those who are your father and mother are also people as timid as mice. TSK. If you ask me, you shouldn't be called Ling Tian. You should be called Shutian instead." If Zhao Kun's previous sentence was considered somewhat polite, this sentence was undoubtedly a blatant attempt to enrage and provoke Duan Ling Tian. Ha ha ha. Hearing Zhao Kun's words, the other 3 Heavenly Hall disciples from the Zhao family lineage beside Zhao Ji couldn't help but burst into loud laughter. Shutian? That name seems quite good. It is quite good. It feels much smoother to say than something like Ling Tian. Thinking of everything he could obtain after killing Duan Ling Tian, Zhao Kun couldn't care about anything else anymore. Zhao Kun, what are you doing? Zhao Ji's gaze toward Zhao Kun was full of chilling intent as he sent a sharp voice transmission. He hadn't expected this Zhao Kun to actually dare to defy his wishes and completely disregard him. However, even though he was harsh in voice and countenance, Zhao Kun still ignored him. The current Zhao Kun was only thinking about how to kill Ling Tian and obtain the reward promised by that protector of the Zhao family lineage. Today, let alone Zhao Ji, even if Zhao Ji's old man Zhao Deng came, he wouldn't give a damn. No one could block Zhao Kun's path to the heavens. As Zhao Kun's voice fell, the gazes of everyone present simultaneously landed on Duan Lingtian, all wanting to know what his reaction would be. This Zhao Kun is too ruthless, isn't he? It's one thing to want Duan Lingtian to go to the life and death stage with him, but he's actually using such despicable means to provoke Ling Tian. Yeah, these means are too despicable. He wants Ling Tian to lose his mind and accept his life and death battle invitation. Ling Tian will definitely see through his goal. He shouldn't fall for it. However, the thoughts of the group of spectating Xian Kong Mansion disciples were destined to be just their own thoughts. If Zhao Kun's words were only about Duan Lingtian himself, he wouldn't care much. Of course, he only wouldn't care about the words. He would definitely accept Zhao Kun's life and death battle invitation. But now, in his words, Zhao Kun was actually insulting his parents. A dragon has a reverse scale. If touched, death is certain. Duan Lingtian's parents were his reverse scale, especially his mother, who was more important than his own life in his eyes. Yet today, she was being insulted by the words of a petty person. At this moment, Duan Lingtian truly had the urge to immediately rush up and slap Zhao Kun to death. In the end, his rationality still reminded him to be calm. If he killed Zhao Kun just like that, it would undoubtedly violate the rules of the Xian Kong Mansion. Facing the law enforcement hall of the Xian Kong Mansion, he knew he couldn't contend with them with his current strength. Therefore, he chose to be calm. Of course, the calm mentioned here refers to calm in Duan Lingtian's eyes. In the eyes of the spectating crowd, including Zhao Kun, Duan Lingtian was not calm at all. Because Duan Lingtian's gaze had already turned cold with anger at Zhao Kun's words, and he could no longer maintain his previous tranquility. Ling Tian seems very angry. Nonsense. Zhao Kun said such insulting words about his parents. It would be strange if he weren't angry. If someone insulted your parents, could you still remain calm? Of course not. I'd have to fight. For a moment, more and more people were doubting whether Duan Lingtian could maintain his sanity and not agree to Zhao Kun's life and death battle invitation. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Duan Lingtian spoke. His voice was incredibly cold, as if it came from an ice cave, making anyone who heard it feel their hair stand on end. As soon as he finished speaking, Duan Lingtian stepped into the air and left the summit of the Heavenly Hall peak. He agreed. Duan Lingtian's words reached everyone's ears, immediately causing most people to be stunned. Ling Tian agreed to Zhao Kun's life and death battle invitation? It should be so. From what he said, he should be preparing to go to the life and death stage now. No way he agreed just like that. He's too impulsive. Everyone has a bottom line. Perhaps Ling Tian's parents are his bottom line. For his parents, even if he knows he might die, he must fight. Today, I won't comment on anything else regarding this Ling Tian. But his filial piety, I admire it. Seeking his own death. He is seeking his own death. Amidst the waves of discussion, the group of people on the summit of the Heavenly Hall peak began to rush toward the Heavenly Hall's life and death stage in a grand manner. Naturally, some people also flew toward the distance, clearly intending to notify others to come and watch the excitement. Not to mention the Heavenly Hall's life and death stage. Even the several life and death stages of the Xian Kong Mansion had seen not a single Xian Kong Mansion disciple step foot in them to sign a life and death contract in the past 2 years. Therefore, many people would undoubtedly be interested in today's life and death battle between Duan Lingtian and Zhao Kun. Even some Xian Kong Mansion disciples famous on the Xian Kong ranking list came over to join the fun after hearing about this matter. Thus, before long, the area outside the Heavenly Hall's life and death stage was packed with people. The crowd automatically parted to form a path, and the person walking slowly along this path stepping toward the life and death stage one step at a time, was precisely Duan Lingtian, junior brother Lingtian. Suddenly, a figure flew out from the crowd and blocked Duan Lingtian's path. Don't be impulsive. The person who appeared before Duan Lingtian was none other than Hong Gang, who had arrived together with Wang Feishuan. Because he had suffered significant injuries earlier, his face was still extremely pale. He was completely forcing himself to reach Duan Lingtian to stop him. In his view, the reason Duan Lingtian took this matter upon himself and even accepted Zhao Kuan's life and death battle invitation was entirely because of him and his junior brother and junior sister. Because of this, he didn't want anything to happen to Duan Lingtian. Senior brother Hong Gang. Before Duan Lingtian could speak, Wang Feishuan also arrived, appearing beside Hong Gang. She immediately sent a voice transmission to ask Duan Lingtian, when you were in the sacred martial secret realm before, you displayed speed comparable to a great saint realm expert. Are you really confident in a fight against Zhao Kuan? I believe that even if Zhao Kuan provoked you like that, it's impossible for you to lose your mind. Although Wang Feishuan had felt from the beginning that if Duan Lingtian weren't confident, he couldn't possibly have accepted Zhao Kuan's life and death stage invitation. At this moment, she still couldn't help but want to confirm it. He must die today. Hearing Wang Feishuan's voice transmission, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed into a slit, a cold light flashing through them as he replied to Wang Feishuan via voice transmission. I understand. Wang Feishuan nodded and then prepared to call out to Hong Gang to let him step aside and not block Duan Lingtian's path. However, before Wang Feishuan could speak, a sneer came at the right time. What? Do you two also want to sign a life and death contract and have a life and death battle with me? The owner of the voice was precisely Zhao Kuan, who had just arrived at the life and death stage. His words were directed at Wang Feishuan and Hong Gang, who were blocking Duan Lingtian's path. Senior brother Hong Gang, don't worry, Lingtian will definitely kill him. Let's go. At the same time, Wang Feishuan also sent a voice transmission to Hong Gang, leading the still unresponsive Hong Gang away. They made way under the watchful eyes of the crowd, no longer blocking Duan Lingtian. At least you're sensible. Seeing the two of them make way, Zhao Kuan naturally thought they were afraid of him and let out a smug sneer. The surrounding crowd naturally thought the same thing. Junior sister, you just said that Lingtian can kill him. Hong Gang, who had been dazed as he was led away from Duan Lingtian by Wang Feishuan, finally reacted. His eyes widened as he asked Wang Feishuan in a low voice. Don't worry, senior brother. Lingtian won't do anything he isn't sure of. I know him, Wang Feishuan said. As she finished, she seemed to realize her slip of the tongue, and a blush rose to her cheeks. However, Hong Gang was in no mood to appreciate this. Wang Feishuan's words were like a bolt from the blue striking his head, leaving his mind blank for a moment. It took him a while to recover. Upon recovering, his heart was filled with shock and disbelief. Didn't Lingtian just recently break through to the peak Middle Saint realm? Could it be that he has already broken through to the Great Saint realm? Otherwise, why would junior sister say he wouldn't do anything he isn't sure of? Just as Wang Feishuan believed in Lingtian, he also believed in this junior sister of his. Although he hadn't known this junior sister for long, he knew she was definitely not the type to speak without foundation. Soon, Zhu Luqi's other two disciples also arrived. Lingtian is confident. When they learned from Wang Feishuan's mouth that Duan Lingtian was confident about this life and death duel, they were also stunned. However, despite the shock in their hearts, they still chose to believe in the junior sister before them. The life and death stage almost never had anyone visit, so the sudden arrival of so many people today naturally startled the Heavenly Hall elder stationed there. When he walked out of the life and death stage, he immediately learned the ins and outs of the situation from the mouths of the surrounding crowd. Is it you two who want to sign the life and death contract? This Heavenly Hall life and death stage elder's gaze landed on Duan Lingtian and Zhao Kuan as he asked with narrowed eyes. Yes, elder. In front of Duan Lingtian, Zhao Kun was arrogant, but in front of this elder of the heavenly hall of the life and death pavilion, he was as docile as a cat. Facing the elder of the heavenly hall's inquiry, Duan Ling Tian also nodded. You are Ling Tian? Evidently, this elder of the heavenly hall was far more interested in Duan Ling Tian than in Zhao Kun. He merely glanced indifferently at Zhao Kun, then focused his attention entirely on Duan Ling Tian. Seeing this, a cold glint flashed in Zhao Kun's eyes. This old man has no foresight. Does he not know that this Ling Tian is about to become a dead man? Although he was unwilling to admit it, he had to concede that, in terms of talent alone, he couldn't hold a candle to Ling Tian, regardless of strength. While his current cultivation was higher than Ling Tian's, how old was he, and how old was Ling Tian? There was no comparison whatsoever. Seeing the elder of the heavenly hall specifically looking over, Duan Ling Tian could not just nod again. He smiled slightly and said, I am Ling Tian. I heard your current cultivation is only at the peak of the middle saint stage, while he broke through to the early great saint stage a few days ago. Do you truly wish to enter a life and death pact with him and engage in a battle to the death? The elder of the heavenly hall asked. This time, before Duan Ling Tian could speak, Zhao Kun could not help but interject. Elder, as the person in charge of the life and death pavilion, your duty should be to witness us making the life and death pact, right? As for other matters, it seems it's not your place to interfere, is it? At this moment, even at the risk of offending this elder of the heavenly hall, he had to speak. Who knew if Ling Tian would change his mind if the other party continued to persuade him? If he changed his mind, who would he cry to? He was still planning to kill Ling Tian and claim his reward from the guardian of their Zhao family line. Zhao Kun, are you questioning me? As the person in charge of the life and death pavilion, this elder of the heavenly hall was naturally not someone to be trifled with. When he looked at Zhao Kun again, his eyes gleamed sharply. Zhao Kun wouldn't dare. Zhao Kun quickly lowered his head, but still continued. As the saying goes, good advice jars the ear. I asked the elder to handle matters impartially and not interfere too much. It's not for a junior like you to dictate how I, an old man, do things. The elder of the heavenly hall had not expected Zhao Kun to be so presumptuous, and his face immediately darkened. It's not for him to dictate to you, but it is for me to dictate to you. Just as many people thought Zhao Kun was in trouble, a voice came from afar, full of authority, and it also drew everyone's gaze. They all wanted to know who dared to speak to the person in charge of the heavenly hall's life and death pavilion in such a way. Father. Among those present, Zhao Ji was the first to recognize the voice without turning around. After recognizing it, Zhao Ji turned around with a surprised look and flew towards the middle-aged man who was stepping through the air from afar, joining him. It's Vice Palace Master Zhao Deng. I didn't expect even Vice Palace Master Zhao Deng to come. It seems the battle between Ling Tian and Zhao Kun is quite captivating. If those who didn't come knew that Vice Palace Master Zhao Deng himself came, they would surely regret it. After recognizing Zhao Deng, the group of Profound Sky Mansion disciples present were surprised and then began to discuss animatedly. Zhao Deng. Seeing Zhao Deng, Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but frown, not expecting this guy to show up as well. What was he doing here? Was he here to watch his show, to see how he would be killed by Zhao Kun? Too bad. He was probably going to be disappointed. Junior brother Ling Tian. At the same time, another loud voice came from afar, and a familiar figure appeared before Duan Ling Tian's eyes. Senior brother Gu Li. Seeing the newcomer, a rare smile appeared on Duan Ling Tian's face. He hadn't expected Gu Li to come as well. Vice Palace Master Zhao has actually come as well. It seems Vice Palace Master Zhao is also very much looking forward to this battle. Gu Li arrived outside the life and death pavilion and immediately looked at Zhao Deng, taking the initiative to greet him. Just came over to take a look. Zhao Deng said indifferently. In the Profound Sky Mansion, in terms of status, aside from his position as Vice Palace Master of the Profound Sky Mansion, both he and Gu Li were sons of guardians. In terms of talent, he was inferior to Gu Li. In terms of strength, he was much stronger than Gu Li, but that was because he was older than Gu Li. When Gu Li reached his current age, his strength would only be stronger than his, not weaker. In fact, years from now, Gu Li would most likely surpass him. Because of all these reasons, he couldn't ignore Gu Li's greeting. Gu Li nodded, then stepped forward, arriving beside Duan Ling Tian. However, the first person he greeted was not Duan Ling Tian, but the elder of the Heavenly Hall standing opposite Duan Ling Tian, the person in charge of the Heavenly Hall's life and death pavilion. Uncle Master Chung, it's been a few years, and you're still as young as ever. You rascal, you're still as glib as ever. I hear you're now the #1 on the Profound Sky ranking. Very good. The elder of the Heavenly Hall responded to Gu Li with a smile. Junior brother Ling Tian, this is Uncle Master Chung Yun. He's considered my father's junior brother. His master and my grandmaster are sworn brothers. At this moment, Gu Li introduced him to Duan Ling Tian. Elder Chung, I didn't know you were senior brother Gu's uncle master. I was quite presumptuous just now, please forgive me. After learning the other identity of this elder of the Heavenly Hall, Duan Ling Tian was only stunned for a moment before he proactively cupped his hands and apologized to him. Just now, when Chung Yun proactively reminded him that he was not Zhao Kuen's opponent, he was still a bit puzzled. He didn't know this elder of the Heavenly Hall at all, so why would the other party be so kind as to remind him? Now, knowing that Chung Yun was Gu Li's uncle master, Duan Ling Tian suddenly understood. He believed that Chung Yun must know about his good relationship with Gu Li, otherwise, he might not have reminded him. Duan Ling Tian thought of this point, and Zhao Kuen, who was beside him, naturally thought of it too. His face immediately darkened, and he prayed in his heart that no unexpected developments would occur later. This Ling Tian must sign the life and death pact with him. He must not back out at the crucial moment. If Duan Ling Tian backed out and refused to sign the life and death pact with him, even if he wanted to kill Duan Ling Tian again, he wouldn't dare to do so within the Profound Sky Mansion's residence. Elder Chung, since they are here to make a life and death pact, just bring out the life and death pact and let them put their palm prints on it. I really want to see the upcoming Dragon Tiger battle as soon as possible, and I believe it will definitely be a very exciting fight. At the same time, Zhao Deng also walked over with Zhao Ji. Zhao Deng looked at Chung Yun and said. The implication was nothing more than urging Chung Yun to quickly bring out the life and death pact for Duan Ling Tian and Zhao Kuen to sign. Father. Just as Zhao Deng finished speaking and Chung Yun looked at Gu Li, a voice transmission suddenly came to Zhao Deng's ear. Zhao Deng could tell it was his son's voice transmission. Jier, what's wrong? Father. Quickly order Zhao Kuen to go back on his word and not let him make the life and death pact. Zhao Ji continued to transmit, his tone full of urgency. Why? Zhao Deng was puzzled. Didn't you want this Ling Tian to die a long time ago? Today, as long as he makes the life and death pact, facing Zhao Kuen who has already broken through to the Great Saint stage, he will surely die. I know that. I just don't want Ling Tian to die right now. Father, I want to kill Ling Tian myself. I don't want to use someone else's hand. Zhao Ji added. Jier, are you confused? When your grandfather ordered Ling Tian to be killed, you agreed wholeheartedly. Why are you backing out now? Zhao Deng was a bit puzzled. He didn't know if his son had taken the wrong medicine. Zhao Ji certainly hadn't taken the wrong medicine. The reason for his drastic change was that he previously had no hope of surpassing Duan Ling Tian. But now, with the devouring demonic art about to be in his grasp, he could surpass Duan Ling Tian in just 1 or 2 years. Therefore, he didn't want to rely on others to kill Duan Ling Tian. However, could he speak his mind? Father, my cultivation has slowed down a lot recently, and I think it might be related to this Ling Tian. I'm worried that if I don't kill this Ling Tian with my own hands, my cultivation will be significantly affected. Zhao Ji made a clumsy excuse. Jier, Father knows you want to take revenge yourself. However, with your talent, the gap between you and Ling Tian will only grow wider and wider in the future. In the end, let alone you, even I, and even your grandfather, might not be able to suppress him. Zhao Deng said, so, don't be willful. Just let Zhao Kun kill him. As for the cultivation problem you mentioned, it's not a problem at all. As long as this Ling Tian dies, you'll naturally be happy, and when you're happy, your cultivation efficiency will naturally increase. Trust Father. Father has been through this before. Zhao Deng finished speaking in one breath. Subsequently, no matter what excuse Zhao Ji made, Zhao Deng had no intention of stopping Zhao Kun. In the end, Zhao Ji almost couldn't help but blurt out the devouring demonic art, but fortunately, he managed to hold back at the last moment. During the voice transmission between Zhao Deng and his son, Cheng Yun and Gu Li also communicated via voice transmission. He hoped Gu Li would persuade Duan Ling Tian to back out and not sign the life and death pact with Zhao Kun, because he didn't think Duan Ling Tian had a chance of winning. In response, Gu Li also transmitted a question to Duan Ling Tian. After receiving Duan Ling Tian's resolute answer, Gu Li said to Cheng Yun, Uncle Master Cheng, don't worry. Junior brother Ling Tian won't do anything he's not confident about. Bring out the life and death pact. Although he didn't know why Gu Li trusted Duan Ling Tian so much, at this point, Cheng Yun knew that anything he said would be useless. Because even the person involved was much calmer than him. So, when Zhao Deng looked at him again, preparing to urge him further, he promptly took out the life and death pact. Boom. The life and death pact of the Profound Sky Mansion's life and death pavilion was a massive stone tablet, which crashed onto the ground. At a glance, one could see rows of clear characters densely carved on it, which were precisely the contents of the life and death pact. And at the bottom of the stone tablet, 2 empty spaces were left. Each of you place a palm print on it, and this life and death pact will be complete. Cheng Yun looked at Duan Ling Tian and Zhao Kun and said, Bang! As soon as Cheng Yun finished speaking, Zhao Kun struck like lightning, unleashing a palm strike in midair, leaving a deep imprint on the life and death contract steel, thus establishing the contract. After retracting his hand, Zhao Kun looked at Duan Ling Tian, his eyes filled with provocation and disdain. Of course, besides that, he was also a little nervous. Now, it was the final moment. If this Ling Tian backed out, then all his previous efforts would be in vain. Will Ling Tian really establish a life and death contract with Zhao Kun? The group of Xian Kong Mansion disciples watching from afar looked at Duan Ling Tian, and at this moment, their hearts involuntarily tensed up. Bang! It wasn't until they saw Duan Ling Tian raise his hand and strike the life and death contract steel with a palm that the hearts of the Xian Kong Mansion disciples, which had been suspended, finally settled. After their hearts settled, many people's pupils contracted, and some couldn't help but gasp. Ling Tian actually established a life and death contract. Is he not afraid of death? Although his strength is good, even among those at the peak of the Middle Saint stage, he is considered outstanding. But no matter how strong a peak Middle Saint stage martial artist is, they cannot be an opponent for an early Saint stage martial artist. Yes, that's right. If Zhao Kun hadn't broken through to the Great Saint stage, perhaps he wouldn't be his opponent. But the problem is, Zhao Kun broke through to the Great Saint stage a few days ago. Even Hong Gang, who was stronger than him before, is now like a mere chicken or dog in front of him, easily defeated. I really don't know what this Ling Tian is thinking, knowing it's a trap, yet still jumping into it. Impulsiveness is the devil. This Ling Tian is probably going to fall here today. Outside the life and death hall, discussions rose and fell, but no one who spoke was optimistic about Duan Ling Tian. Junior brother Ling Tian, they're all not optimistic about you. Gu Li transmitted his voice to Duan Ling Tian, with a hint of playfulness in his tone. Hearing their words, how do you feel? Don't you wish you could explain yourself? No need for that. Duan Ling Tian shook his head and transmitted his voice back. Facts will shut them up. It seems you are very confident. Gu Li looked deeply at Duan Ling Tian and said. In fact, even Gu Li was not sure if Duan Ling Tian could fight Zhao Kun, who had broken through to the Great Saint stage. But since this was Duan Ling Tian's choice, And he also trusted Duan Ling Tian. He had no intention of stopping him from beginning to end. Could it be that junior brother Ling Tian has also broken through to the great saint stage? Gu Li's eyes gradually narrowed as he looked at Duan Ling Tian, thinking to himself, Xiankong Mansion hasn't been this lively in a long time. At the same time, Zhao Deng spoke with a smile, his voice not loud, but clearly reaching everyone present. Today, I hope you two can display all your strength and bring us a wonderful battle between dragons and tigers. Since the life and death contract has been established, there is no need to hold back. Just fight to your heart's content. It must be said that as the vice mansion master of Xiankong Mansion, Zhao Deng indeed had a knack for it. As soon as he spoke, it made the Xiankong Mansion disciples present feel a surge of excitement, as if it wasn't Duan Ling Tian and Zhao Kuan who had established the life and death contract, but themselves. Humph. Seeing that even his own father didn't believe him, Zhao Ji snorted angrily and turned to leave. Of course, he only left Zhao Deng's side and did not leave the life and death hall. He wanted to witness this battle with his own eyes, even if that Ling Tian was destined to die. The life and death contract has been established. You two can choose a place to be the venue for your life and death battle. The person in charge of the life and death hall, Elder Qingyun of the Heavenly Hall, said to Duan Ling Tian and Zhao Kuan at the appropriate time. Ling Tian, I'll let you have this opportunity. You can choose a good feng shui spot to be your grave. Zhao Kuan looked at Duan Ling Tian with a sinister smile, his words and actions suggesting that he had Duan Ling Tian completely in his grasp. A few days ago, Zhao Kuan had broken through to the Great Saint stage. Facing Ling Tian, who had broken through to the peak of the Middle Saint stage less than a year ago, he had no fear at all. Breaking through to the peak of the Middle Saint stage in less than a year, even the most outstanding young geniuses in the upper domain of the Dao Martial Saint land might not be able to break through to the Great Saint stage. Because of this, Zhao Kuan never considered the possibility that Duan Ling Tian had already broken through to the Great Saint stage. Not only Zhao Kuan, but also Zhao Deng, and almost all the Xiankong Mansion disciples present, never thought that Duan Ling Tian could break through from the late Middle Saint stage to the early Great Saint stage in just 1 year, because that was almost impossible. Of course, some people suspected that Duan Ling Tian had already broken through to the Great Saint stage. Wang Fei Xian, Gu Li. They both suspected that Duan Ling Tian had already broken through to the Great Saint stage. Especially Wang Fei Xian, almost half a year ago, she had already witnessed Duan Ling Tian's speed, which could rival that of an early Great Saint stage powerhouse in the Saint Martial secret realm. However, when she asked Duan Ling Tian if he had already broken through to the Great Saint stage, Duan Ling Tian told her that he had not. Of course, Wang Fei Xian didn't believe Duan Ling Tian's words. Let me have it. Choose a good feng shui spot to be my grave. Hearing Zhao Kuan's words, Duan Ling Tian was first stunned, then suddenly burst into laughter. His gloomy expression at this moment bloomed into a brilliant smile, as if he had heard the greatest joke. What are you laughing at? Zhao Kuan's expression changed. He felt as if Duan Ling Tian didn't take him seriously at all, and he immediately became angry out of embarrassment. You don't need to prepare my grave. However, your grave doesn't seem suitable here, lest it defile the pure land of the life and death hall. Duan Ling Tian spoke calmly at first, but then his speed of speech quickened. Just when almost everyone, including Zhao Kuan, thought Duan Ling Tian was being a bit arrogant, Duan Ling Tian moved. In an instant, Duan Ling Tian's sun, True Yuan, surged, dazzling beyond compare. To the eyes of the Xiankong Mansion disciples watching, he seemed to transform into a rapidly moving blazing sun. Before anyone could react, that blazing sun had already overlapped with Zhao Kuan. Be careful. Among those present, Zhao Deng's strength was the strongest, so he was also the first to react and timely reminded Zhao Kuan. This was because he discovered that Ling Tian, whom their Zhao family lineage regarded as a mortal enemy, had also broken through to the Great Saint stage, and he was not an ordinary Great Saint Stage practitioner. Even an ordinary early Great Saint Stage existence might not be as fast as him. At this thought, an ominous premonition rose in Zhao Deng's heart. Zhao Kun, I'm afraid, is not this Ling Tian's opponent. Whoosh. And just as Zhao Deng was momentarily distracted, Duan Ling Tian had already appeared in front of Zhao Kun. Just as Zhao Deng had seen, the speed he had just displayed was already faster than most mid-Great Saint Stage existences. Therefore, Zhao Kun only reacted when Duan Ling Tian appeared in front of him. So fast. This was Zhao Kun's first reaction when Duan Ling Tian appeared in front of him. This speed even surpassed his own speed. In a flash of lightning, Zhao Kun didn't have time to wonder why Duan Ling Tian's speed was so fast. His consciousness immediately urged the true yuan within his body to surge out along the dozens of saint veins, as if only by having true yuan around him could he find a sense of security. Unfortunately, he had too few saint veins. At least, compared to the saint veins in Duan Ling Tian's body, they were pitifully few. If he had 99 saint veins like Duan Ling Tian, his true yuan would have already burst out in an instant. But now, his true yuan was still halfway there when Duan Ling Tian's right hand, imbued with Sun True Yuan, landed on his shoulder like an eagle's claw, crushing his shoulder with a crack sound. At the same time, Zhao Kun felt a vast power surge from Duan Ling Tian's hand, entering his body and directly crushing the true yuan he hadn't even had time to mobilize. Intense pain, accompanied by the shattering of his true yuan, made Zhao Kun's mood plummet from heaven to hell in an instant. At this moment, if he still hadn't realized that Duan Ling Tian's strength was far superior to his own, then he would have lived all these years for nothing. Spare. Zhao Kun opened his mouth in pain, sweating profusely, but before he could beg for mercy, Duan Ling Tian had already carried him away from the life and death hall of the heavenly hall, arriving in the nearby void, with a 10,000-foot abyss below them. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the Sun True Yuan on Duan Ling Tian's body gradually receded, making his and Zhao Kun's figures clearly visible in everyone's sight. Cough, cough, cough. Spare my life. Ling Tian. Senior brother. At some point, Duan Ling Tian's hand, which had been gripping Zhao Kun's shoulder, had already clasped Zhao Kun's neck. Zhao Kun struggled incessantly, but couldn't break free from Duan Ling Tian's control. He could only desperately beg for mercy, his face flushed as if it could drip blood. It wasn't that Zhao Kun didn't mobilize the true yuan within his body, but every time he did, it was shattered by the power that Duan Ling Tian poured into his body. Duan Ling Tian's power aggressively invaded his body, like a cuckoo taking over a magpie's nest. And to achieve this against an early Great Saint Stage martial artist like him, the attacker must at least be a mid-Great Saint Stage existence or higher. Only the true yuan of a mid-Great Saint Stage existence or higher could crush his true yuan. Mid-Great Saint Stage. This Ling Tian is a mid-Great Saint Stage powerhouse. The despairing Zhao Kun constantly cried out silently in his heart. He regretted it, truly regretted it. If heaven gave him another chance, he would never actively provoke this Ling Tian. Even if killing this Ling Tian could make him the adopted son of that protector of their Zhao family lineage, he would not have any thoughts about this Ling Tian. Because the other party was simply not someone he could deal with. Silence. Outside the life and death hall, there was a dead silence. In fact, in the surrounding area, at this moment, besides Zhao Kun's pleas for mercy, no other sound could be heard. After a while, people gradually came to their senses, staring dumbfounded at the scene in the distance. Hiss. 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 Gasps of cold air rose and fell, continuous and unending. How is this possible? The scene before him continuously assaulted Zhao Ji's eyes, causing his heart to surge with emotions that were difficult to calm for a long time. He had originally thought that Ling Tian would die at Zhao Kun's hands today, because Zhao Kun had made a breakthrough to the Great Saint Realm a few days ago, while it was fundamentally impossible for Ling Tian to have reached the Great Saint Realm. However, reality had given him a crisp slap in the face. Ling Tian fundamentally impossible to reach the Great Saint Realm? Setting everything else aside, based on the strength Ling Tian displayed in that instant just now, it was 100% the strength of the Great Saint Realm, and it wasn't as simple as having just reached the Great Saint Realm either. Didn't you see that Zhao Kun had no power to fight back before him and was being toyed with? This Ling Tian must be eliminated. A cold light shot from Zhao Deng's eyes. If not for his concern that this was the Xian Kong Mansion's base, he would have already been unable to wait to strike and kill that Ling Tian. The conflict between the Zhao family lineage and Ling Tian had long been established. It was a battle to the death. Naturally, he did not wish for Ling Tian to grow up. A young man with such prodigy-level talent, once he grew up, let alone himself, even his father would likely be stepped upon by this young man one day. Junior brother Ling Tian. Guli looked at Duan Ling Tian, dumbfounded. As a peak Great Saint Realm martial cultivator, he naturally saw that Duan Ling Tian's speed just now, while not quite at the level of a late-stage Great Saint Realm martial cultivator, was superior to most mid-stage Great Saint Realm martial cultivators. When did he reach the Great Saint Realm? I never heard him mention it. Junior brother Ling Tian, you really kept me in the dark. At some point, the gaze Guli directed at Duan Ling Tian became a bit more resentful. He really did reach the Great Saint Realm. Humph. Last time he actually lied to me and said he hadn't reached it yet. Wang Feishuan said with a huff, while simultaneously feeling relieved. Meanwhile, Hong Gang beside her, as well as Zhu Luqi's other 2 personal disciples, were already as still as wooden chickens. Ling Tian actually reached the Great Saint Realm? No wonder he dared to accept Zhao Kun's life and death contract invitation. It turns out he wasn't afraid of Zhao Kun at all. His strength is probably not as simple as just reaching the Great Saint Realm. Before him, Zhao Kun had no power to fight back. Hong Gang took a deep breath and spoke slowly. The person in charge of the Life and Death Hall, that Heaven Palace elder Cheng Yun, was also looking at Duan Ling Tian with startle. It's hard to imagine that this is actually a little fellow under 40 years old. With his current strength, looking at the younger generation of the Dao Wu Sacred Land lower domain, he can be called the #1 person. At the same time, the other Xian Kong Mansion disciples also came to their senses one by one. Their gazes toward Duan Ling Tian were as if they had seen a ghost. Not long ago, they all felt that Duan Ling Tian was certainly going to die. But now, the facts were before their eyes, making each of them unable to help but feel red-faced, only feeling how foolish their previous thoughts had been. Under this kind of atmosphere, the scene fell silent for a period of time. Spare your life? Just as the scene fell silent, Duan Ling Tian's voice clearly spread out. He was speaking to Zhao Kun, whose neck he was clutching. Just now, when you were insulting me, did you think about begging me for mercy? When you were insulting my parents, did you think about begging me for mercy? Duan Ling Tian's voice gradually became icy cold. If my strength were inferior to yours in today's life and death battle, would you have let me go? Duan Ling Tian's 3 consecutive questions left Zhao Kun speechless. Humph. Right at this moment, accompanied by a cold snort, Zhao Deng stepped into the air and headed into the distance, clearly preparing to leave. Vice Mansion Master. Save me. Seeing this, Zhao Kun grew desperate, struggling with all his might to call out to Zhao Deng for help. As everyone's gaze fell upon Zhao Deng, he stopped in his tracks just in time, turned around, and gave Zhao Kun a faint look. Zhao Kun, you were the one who actively issued the invitation for this life and death battle. The life and death contract was also signed by you first. Let alone me. Even if my father were standing here today, it would not be convenient to save you. If we saved you, what would be the point of the Xian Kong Mansion's life and death hall's existence? What would be the point of the life and death contract's existence? Zhao Deng's words were spoken with righteous indignation, causing many Xian Kong Mansion disciples to nod, feeling that Vice Mansion Master Zhao Deng was very sensible and did not break the rules of the life and death hall just because Zhao Kuan was a member of the Zhao family lineage. Noticing the change in the gazes of the Xian Kong Mansion disciples, Zhao Deng knew his purpose had been achieved. If you must blame someone, blame yourself for your inferior skills. This was the last sentence Zhao Deng left for Zhao Kuan before departing. After Zhao Deng left, Zhao Kuan's eyes showed a look of despair, his head twitched violently a few times, and his aura became increasingly withered. Seeing that Zhao Kuan was at the end of his rope, Duan Lingtian gave his hand a jolt, directly sending him flying out. Following that, without any visible movement from him, over 100 sword lights whistled out from his body, passing through Zhao Kuan's body and turning Zhao Kuan's corpse into something like a hornet's nest. Toward enemies, Duan Lingtian was never soft-hearted. Moreover, this was an enemy who had verbally insulted his parents. It wasn't until Duan Lingtian, Gu Li, and Wang Feishuan walked away side by side through the air that the Xian Kong Mansion disciples outside the life and death hall came to their senses one by one. Too strong. I really didn't expect our Xian Kong Mansion to produce such a prodigy. In the history of the Dao Wu Sacred Land Lower Domain, has a Saint Realm expert under 40 years old ever appeared? It seems not. Ling Tian's cultivation has likely already broken through to the mid-stage Great Saint Realm. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to completely crush Zhao Kuan. Yeah, Zhao Kuan is at least an early-stage Great Saint Realm martial cultivator, yet before him, he had no power to fight back. I wouldn't even believe it if someone said he just reached the Great Saint Realm. But how exactly does this Ling Tian cultivate? How could he raise his cultivation to such a level in such a short period of time? Among the Xian Kong Mansion disciples, there were also some famous existences on the Xian Kong ranking list. They were existences at the Great Saint Realm level and had their own understanding of the strength Duan Lingtian displayed. Although I reached the mid-stage Great Saint Realm some time ago, even if I exerted my full effort, my speed would not match Ling Tian's. Ling Tian's strength, even if it doesn't reach the level of a late-stage Great Saint Realm existence, can be considered outstanding among those in the mid-stage Great Saint Realm. A mid-stage Great Saint Realm Xian Kong Mansion disciple said. He was a famous existence on the Xian Kong ranking list, so his words were very persuasive. Gradually, everyone confirmed one point. That was, Duan Lingtian's strength was among the best in the mid-stage Great Saint Realm. Mid-stage Great Saint Realm? In the crowd, Zhao Ji had not yet left. Hearing the surrounding sighs of admiration, his expression became increasingly unsightly. I really didn't expect his cultivation speed to be so fast. If not for the devouring in demonic art, I'm afraid I could only eat his dust for the rest of my life. No, perhaps I wouldn't even have the chance to eat his dust. With this thought, Zhao Ji also left. However, he did not return to his own residence, but instead secretly left the Xian Kong Mansion's base to find Zhu Luqi and Su Jing. I must begin to cultivate the devouring in demonic art as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for me to catch up to that Ling Tian, let alone seek revenge against him. Along the way, Zhao Ji was burning with anxiety. Currently, he desperately wished to obtain the devouring in demonic art. In his view, as long as he cultivated the devouring in demonic art in time, surpassing Duan Lingtian in the future would be a simple matter. After Zhao Ji left, the news of Duan Lingtian and Zhao Kuan establishing a life and death contract and easily killing Zhao Kuan swept through the entire Xian Kong Mansion base like a hurricane, shocking everyone, including Mansion Master Meng Qing. Ling Tian, mid-stage Great Saint Realm? How is this possible? Of course, many people did not dare to believe this news was true. Was it possible for a mid-stage Great Saint Realm expert under 40 years old to appear in the Dao Wu Sacred Land Lower Domain? However, as more and more people spread the news, and with many people present who could testify, even if they were unwilling to believe it, they had no choice but to believe it. Junior brother Ling Tian, You kept me in the dark. Gu Li looked at Duan Lingtian with an accusatory expression. Last time I told you that when I reached the human saint realm, you should try your best to reach the great saint realm, so we can go to the Dao Martial Sacred Land upper domain together. Why didn't you tell me that you had already reached the great saint realm? Senior brother Gu Li, my situation is a bit special. Duan Lingtian naturally saw that Gu Li wasn't truly angry, but he really didn't know what excuse to find for this. In the end, he could only tell the truth. Of course, it was only a part of the truth. I once obtained a fortuitous encounter, and that encounter caused my true yuan to undergo an earth-shaking change. When my cultivation was at the early stage lesser saint realm, the power of the true yuan in my body was already enough to compare to the true yuan of an ordinary mid-stage middle saint realm. Therefore, my current level of cultivation is actually only mid-stage middle saint realm. There is still some distance to the great saint realm. Duan Lingtian said. Although his situation was indeed like that, he did not elaborate on what that fortuitous encounter was. Elder Hua, and even the 7 treasures' exquisite pagoda, were his greatest secrets. Once spread, they would certainly bring about a catastrophe. Therefore, he had to be cautious. There's such a fortuitous encounter? Gu Li's eyes widened with a face full of disbelief, but it was just feeling it was incredible. The major 1,000 worlds are full of wonders. Therefore, he did not doubt Duan Lingtian's words. In the Dao Martial Holy Land, fortuitous encounters happen every day. There are large ones and small ones, and no one dares to say they can understand all fortuitous encounters. In that case, your current cultivation is actually at the same level as mine? Wang Feishuan, who had been quietly following beside Duan Lingtian, could not help but interject at this moment. If we're talking solely about cultivation, that is indeed the case. Duan Lingtian nodded. He regarded Gu Li and Wang Feishuan as friends, which was why he disclosed this matter to them. Moreover, as long as he didn't mention Elder Hua or the 7 treasures' exquisite pagoda, disclosing this matter was fine. Upon receiving Duan Lingtian's confirmation, Wang Feixian was left speechless, feeling that the heavens were so unfair. This young man, whose cultivation was comparable to hers, and whose talent didn't seem much higher than hers, actually possessed strength comparable to a great saint stage mid-phase powerhouse. Was he even letting people live? At this moment, Wang Feixian felt extremely unbalanced. Of course, Wang Feixian had such thoughts because she didn't know Duan Lingtian's background. If she knew that Duan Lingtian had come from a mortal continent and had risen step by step to his current position, she definitely wouldn't think that way. To be able to come from a mortal continent to the Dao Martial Saint Land and possess his current cultivation, in terms of talent, she simply couldn't compare. Furthermore, she knew in her heart that even the top geniuses from the upper domain of the Dao Martial Saint Land, if they had grown up in a mortal continent, might not have achieved what Ling Tian had today. Junior brother Ling Tian, what was that fortuitous encounter you had? If I also encountered something like that, wouldn't my strength be comparable to a human saint stage powerhouse? Gu Li looked at Duan Ling Tian with sparkling eyes, wishing his true origin could also undergo such a transformation. Hearing Gu Li's words, Wang Feixian's eyes also lit up, and she stared intently at Duan Ling Tian. Evidently, she was also very curious about the fortuitous encounter Duan Ling Tian had. My fortuitous encounter was meeting a mysterious spirit fruit. After consuming those spirit fruits, my true origin underwent a heaven-shaking transformation. At the time, I didn't know how precious the spirit fruits were, so I ate them all. Later, I searched all around, but couldn't find any more of those spirit fruits. Furthermore, when I picked those spirit fruits, the tree they grew on withered and died. Duan Ling Tian spoke nonsense with wide eyes, and his words dispelled Gu Li and Wang Feixian's little thoughts. What? More than one spirit fruit? And you ate them all? Gu Li's eyes widened. What a waste of heavenly treasures! What a waste of heavenly treasures! You? Wang Feixian looked at Duan Ling Tian and only managed to blurt out a sentence after a long time. What a spendthrift! Although Duan Ling Tian's words were made up, the meaning he conveyed was as unreplicable as his true fortuitous encounter. The three-legged golden crow can only empower one person in its lifetime, bestowing upon that person the attribute of sun's fire. And old fire gave him the only chance. You two just need to know about this. If others find out, I'll definitely be annoyed to death. Duan Ling Tian added, reminding Gu Li and Wang Feixian. After all, it was an unreplicable fortuitous encounter, so even if others knew, they couldn't do anything to him. However, even so, those people would still be curious and come to him, asking about the characteristics of that spirit fruit. Just like Gu Li now, he looked at Duan Ling Tian with sparkling eyes and asked, Junior brother Ling Tian, do you still remember the appearance and characteristics of that spirit fruit? That spirit fruit was very ordinary, looking exactly like a common apple. At the time, I also thought it was just an apple, so I ate them casually, but I never expected them to cause such a drastic change in my true origin. Duan Ling Tian said casually, completely dispelling Gu Li's thoughts. Of course, Wang Feixian's thoughts were also dispelled. Duan Ling Tian didn't know that as the news of his decisive battle with Zhao Kuan and his strong killing of Zhao Kuan spread, the upper echelons of the Xiankong mansion were like an earthquake. Zhao Kuan had already broken through to the Great Saint stage a few days ago. However, he was still killed by Ling Tian. Moreover, the cultivation Ling Tian displayed when killing Zhao Kuan was at least the Great Saint stage mid-phase. Under 40 years old, Great Saint stage mid-phase. Such a monstrous talent was already worth the Xiankong mansion retaining at all costs. Therefore, apart from the people of the Zhao family lineage and the protector Gu Xiaiyun, the high-ranking officials in the Xiankong mansion's base went to find the mansion master Meng Qing by prior arrangement. Mansion master, with Ling Tian's talent, he will surely become an existence like Duan Ru Feng of the Qingyun mansion and Dugu of the Yinshan black market in the future. I think it's necessary to keep him in the mansion, even if it means designating him as the next mansion master of the Xiankong mansion, said one of the vice mansion masters of the Xiankong mansion. I agree. I also agree. Immediately, all the high-ranking officials of the Xiankong mansion present expressed their agreement. I can understand your thoughts, but Ling Tian has already stated that he will leave the Xiankong mansion in a few years. So, your thoughts are probably impossible to realize. Meng Qing shook his head. Although he had no direct interaction with Ling Tian, he could tell that he was not someone who could be constrained by the title of Xiankong Mansion Master. Mansion Master. The reason Ling Tian has such thoughts is that he doesn't feel a sense of belonging to our Xiankong mansion. If our Xiankong mansion is willing to give him everything, satisfy all his demands, and then designate him as the next mansion master, I believe he will not refuse. A seasoned elder of the Xiankong mansion said. Exactly. No matter what, please, mansion master, give it a try. Mansion master, Ling Tian's appearance means too much to our Xiankong mansion. Please, mansion master, persuade him to stay. The high-ranking officials of the Xiankong mansion were subtly pressuring Meng Qing. However, Meng Qing was not displeased, because he knew that these vice mansion masters and elders were all thinking for the Xiankong mansion. If Ling Tian is willing to stay in the Xiankong mansion, I can directly designate him as the next mansion master. In this way, all vice mansion masters and elders come with me to find Ling Tian and tell him our conditions to see if he is willing to stay. Although Meng Qing himself felt that Ling Tian would likely not stay in the Xiankong mansion because of those conditions, he also knew that if they didn't see Ling Tian personally decline, these vice mansion masters and elders would certainly not give up, so he simply took them with him to find Ling Tian. Facing Meng Qing's statement, the eyes of the high-ranking officials of the Xiankong mansion present all lit up. Mansion master is wise. I believe that with the sincerity of the mansion master and us, Ling Tian will definitely be willing to stay in the Xiankong mansion. As long as Ling Tian is willing to stay in our Xiankong mansion, in at most a few decades, our Xiankong mansion will surely become the third Yinshan black market. In the past, In the lower domain of the Dao Martial Saint Land, the Inshan black market was the leading powerful force, suppressing other forces that were also considered quasi-third-rate. It wasn't until the Qingyun Mansion changed its mansion master and rose strongly, practically becoming the second Inshan black market. From then on, the top of the pyramid in the lower domain of the Dao Martial Saint Land formed a situation of two-way rivalry. The high-ranking officials of the Xian Kong Mansion unanimously believed that as long as Ling Tian was willing to stay in the Xian Kong Mansion, he would surely lead the Xian Kong Mansion to become the third Inshan black market in the future. At that time, the Xian Kong Mansion would become one of the three strongest forces in the lower domain, forming a three-way rivalry with the Qingyun Mansion and the Inshan black market. It must be said that the high-ranking officials of the Xian Kong Mansion had great ambitions. Of course, the reason they had such ambitions was also because they had full confidence in Duan Ling Tian. When Xian Kong Mansion Master Meng Qing arrived with a group of high-ranking Xian Kong Mansion officials, Duan Ling Tian was just about to bid farewell to Gu Li and Wang Fei Xian. Seeing Meng Qing and the others arrive, not only Duan Ling Tian, but even Gu Li and Wang Fei Xian couldn't help but be stunned. However, they quickly reacted and bowed respectfully. Greetings, Mansion Master, Vice Mansion Masters, and Elders. Mansion Master. Unlike Gu Li and Wang Fei Xian's politeness, facing Meng Qing and his entourage, Duan Ling Tian merely nodded and greeted Meng Qing, while completely ignoring the others as if they were air. Normally, facing such a rude Xian Kong Mansion disciple, the high-ranking officials of the Xian Kong Mansion would definitely explode. But today, Duan Ling Tian's rudeness, in their eyes, seemed to be nothing at all. Furthermore, they were even defending Duan Ling Tian in their hearts. As expected of someone who can be called a peerless genius, he is unyielding and does not easily bend. If such a person becomes the mansion master of our Xian Kong Mansion in the future, why would the Xian Kong Mansion not prosper? A monstrous talent should have an independent personality. If he just goes with the flow, what's the difference between him and an ordinary disciple? This Ling Tian is a remarkable person. So young, yet he can be so arrogant, which shows he is very confident. Such a person, once he grows up, will surely be a formidable figure. If the inner thoughts of the high-ranking officials of the Xian Kong Mansion were known to others, the disciples of the entire Xian Kong Mansion would probably be enraged to the point of spitting blood. It was clearly rudeness, but how did it become unyielding and not going with the flow in the mouths of these high-ranking officials? Gu Li and Wang Fei Xian were originally worried about Duan Ling Tian, fearing that he would offend the high-ranking officials of the Xian Kong Mansion behind Meng Qing. However, when they found that none of the high-ranking officials were angry, they all breathed a sigh of relief, feeling that Duan Ling Tian was lucky not to have angered these high-ranking officials. But the next scene completely stunned them. Ling Tian, we met last time. Do you remember when you entered and left the Saint Martial Secret Realm? A vice mansion master of the Xian Kong Mansion was the first to look at Duan Ling Tian and introduced himself with a smile. Following closely, one by one, the vice mansion masters and elders took turns introducing themselves to Duan Ling Tian, speaking with extreme politeness, not treating Duan Ling Tian as an ordinary disciple at all. Gu Li and Wang Fei Xian exchanged glances, both seeing astonishment and shock in each other's eyes. As the saying goes, one doesn't hit a smiling face. Therefore, facing the active greetings from the high-ranking officials of the Xian Kong Mansion, Duan Ling Tian returned a smile to each of them, considering it a return of their greetings. Mansion Master, you, the Vice Mansion Masters, and Elders have come to find me. May I ask what the matter is? At the same time, Duan Ling Tian looked at Meng Qing and asked. Of course, he only asked verbally. In his heart, he already had the answer. Wang Fei Xian was fine. She didn't guess Meng Qing and the others' intentions for a moment. But Gu Li did, so his expression also became serious. I never thought that junior brother Ling Tian is already so sought after. Ling Tian, we came here hoping you would stay in Xian Kong Mansion and serve the Xian Kong Mansion. Facing Duan Lingtian's inquiry, Meng Qing said straightforwardly, "As long as you are willing to stay, the Xiankong Mansion will spare no effort to foster you in the future, providing all cultivation resources without reservation. Furthermore, I can immediately announce that you will be designated as the next mansion master of the Xiankong Mansion." Meng Qing's words were loud and clear. As Meng Qing finished speaking, the eyes of the Xiankong Mansion's high-level executives all fell upon Duan Lingtian. Their gazes were full of expectation and desire. As long as this young man in front of them was willing to stay, the Xiankong Mansion would surely rise to the next level, becoming a powerful force capable of rivaling the Yinshan black market and Qingyan Mansion. If they could witness that scene in their lifetime, they would die without regret. Hearing Meng Qing's words, Duan Lingtian and Gu Li were relatively calm because they had already guessed this outcome, but Wang Feishuan was different. Having not guessed it beforehand, she had just recovered her senses only to be stunned speechless again. She never expected that Duan Lingtian could cause the high-level executives, led by the mansion master, to come specifically to retain him. "Why are you still standing there foolishly?" "Agree." Seeing that Duan Lingtian hadn't reacted for a long time, Wang Feishuan grew anxious for him. In her view, the promise made by Meng Qing was enough to show his and Xiankong Mansion's sincerity, and with such sincerity, Duan Lingtian could not possibly refuse. Unfortunately, regarding this matter, she was destined to live in her own world. Mansion Master, Vice Mansion Masters, and all elders. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping over the faces of Meng Qing and the others. After pondering for a moment, he continued, "Lingtian appreciates the great kindness you have shown. However, because I have already promised my master that I would go to the upper domain of the Dao Martial Holy Land to find him. Therefore, it is impossible for me to remain in the Xiankong Mansion." Impossible. Gu Li was not surprised by Duan Lingtian's words, because he knew that the Xiankong Mansion could not contain his junior brother Lingtian. Junior brother Lingtian's stage rightfully belonged in the Dao Martial Holy Land upper domain. Meng Qing was also not surprised, as he had long guessed this outcome. The reason he came here was also to make the high-level executives of the Xiankong Mansion give up hope. Wang Feishuan was stunned. The high-level executives of the Xiankong Mansion were also dumbfounded. Wang Feishuan hadn't expected Duan Lingtian to refuse. Among the high-level executives of the Xiankong Mansion, while the majority thought Duan Lingtian would agree, a small portion were also unsure if Duan Lingtian would accept. However, even if they weren't certain Duan Lingtian would agree, they never expected him to refuse so decisively. Listening to Duan Lingtian's words, there was clearly no room for negotiation. He doesn't know what's good for him. If the Xiankong Mansion hadn't taken you in and allowed you into the Heavenly Hall spiritual pool, could you have achieved what you have today? Ungrateful wretch. Even among the high-level executives of the Xiankong Mansion, there were good and bad people. Therefore, while some could understand Duan Lingtian, more people could not, and a small number even started cursing him. Hearing these curses, Duan Lingtian merely shook his head and smiled. If the Xiankong Mansion hadn't taken him in, he wouldn't have achieved what he has today. If he hadn't entered the Heavenly Hall spiritual pool, he wouldn't have achieved what he has today. Ungrateful wretch. The Xiankong Mansion has so many disciples, and quite a few have passed through the Heavenly Hall spiritual pool. But who among them, at his age, possesses the strength comparable to a middle great saint realm expert? Of course, it could also be said that even without the Xiankong Mansion, Duan Lingtian's achievements would still not be low. Duan Lingtian had always been grateful to the Xiankong Mansion, whether it was because of the Heavenly Hall spiritual pool, the sacred martial secret realm, or even because Mansion Master Meng Qing and Protector Gu Thun sought various materials needed to repair the fourth layer of the Seven Treasures exquisite pagoda. However, although he was grateful, he did not plan to stay in the Xiankong Mansion out of gratitude. He had things he needed to do. Some things cannot be delayed. Naturally, he would definitely repay the favor he owed the Xiankong Mansion in the future, but not by agreeing to Meng Qing's request. Due to Duan Lingtian's refusal, His meeting with the high-level executives of the Xian Kong mansion ended on a sour note. At the same time, this matter swept through the entire Xian Kong mansion like a hurricane, causing a massive commotion throughout the organization. That Ling Tian, isn't he too ignorant of what's good for him? TSK. As long as he stayed in the Xian Kong mansion, not only would the Xian Kong mansion spare no effort to foster him, but the mansion master even designated him as the next mansion master, yet he still refused. I really don't know what he's thinking. If it were me, I would definitely agree immediately. Similar comments could be heard everywhere throughout the Xian Kong mansion, all believing Duan Lingtian was too arrogant and did not know what was good for him. Duan Lingtian chose to ignore all of this. The main mansion of the Xian Kong mansion, where Protector Zhao Jin resided, was a vast palace. Currently, Zhao Jin was with his son, Zhao Deng. Father, that Lingtian cannot be allowed to stay. Given his talent, he will definitely become a grave threat to our Zhao family lineage in the future. A cold light flashed in Zhao Deng's eyes as he said in a deep voice. If he had agreed to the mansion master today, perhaps I would have been somewhat wary of him, but I never expected him to foolishly refuse. Zhao Jin sneered. Father, since he is determined to leave the Xian Kong mansion and doesn't seem to be leaving the Xian Kong mansion station for now, why don't we wait until the day he leaves the Xian Kong mansion to strike and kill him? Killing intent radiated from Zhao Deng as he suggested. If he doesn't go out before leaving the Xian Kong mansion, we won't have a choice. Zhao Jin said. Even he dared not easily make a move within the Xian Kong mansion station, because striking within the Xian Kong mansion station would immediately be detected by Mansion Master Meng Qing and Protector Gu Xing. Meng Qing and Gu Xiyun's divine sense, combined with the formations covering the Xian Kong mansion station, could easily monitor the situation everywhere within the station. Precisely because of this, no one dared to easily kill others within the Xian Kong mansion station, unless that person also didn't care about their life. At this moment, Duan Lingtian did not know that Zhao Jin and Zhao Deng, father and son, were determined to kill him. Even if he didn't leave the Xian Kong mansion station for the time being, they would still make a move to kill him on the day he left the Xian Kong mansion. Duan Lingtian had now returned inside the Seven Treasures' exquisite pagoda, cultivating while comprehending the Supreme Heart Sword. Whenever he encountered a bottleneck, he would leave the Seven Treasures' exquisite pagoda and his residence to chat with Gu Li and Wang Feishuan, or even discuss the martial Dao and divine abilities. Furthermore, a continuous stream of materials was also delivered into Elder Hua's hands. The repair work on the fourth layer of the Seven Treasures' exquisite pagoda, handled by Elder Hua, was proceeding vigorously. Time flew by. A year passed in the blink of an eye. Of course, the year mentioned here refers to the time outside. Inside the third layer of the Seven Treasures' exquisite pagoda, a full 5 years had passed. During those 5 years, Duan Lingtian's cultivation also advanced rapidly. His comprehension of the Supreme Heart Sword was only half a step away from the third realm. During this year, it wasn't just Duan Lingtian's cultivation that advanced rapidly. In a vast barren land far to the west of the Dao Wu Sacred Land lower domain, 2 other people's cultivation levels were also rapidly increasing at an abnormal speed, even faster than Duan Lingtian's cultivation inside the third layer of the Seven Treasures' exquisite pagoda. The cultivation of these 2 people was not the conservative method of sitting quietly and absorbing heaven and earth spiritual qi. Their method of cultivation required young women, many young women. Of course, virgins had an even better effect. The young women they used for cultivation were all sucked dry into dried corpses, and the commotion they caused was considerable. However, none of this commotion spread outwards. This was because anyone who saw the dried corpses or discovered the disappearance of the young women was secretly dealt with by them. And the 2 people cultivating in this area were none other than the former hall master of the Xian Kong Mansion's Heavenly Hall, Zhu Luqi, and the grandson of the current Xian Kong Mansion protector and son of the vice mansion master, Zhao Ji. Ha! Accompanied by a hearty laugh, Zhao Ji stood up from the dense jungle. Completely naked, A dried corpse clearly lay at his feet. If one looked closely, they would find that this dried corpse belonged to a young woman. Looking at the pool of fresh blood on the ground beneath the dried corpse's crotch, it wasn't hard to guess that this young woman was still a virgin. Late Great Saint Realm. I've broken through to the late Great Saint Realm. After laughing for a while, seeming satisfied, Zhao Ji's attention finally shifted to his current cultivation level. In the span of a year, his cultivation soared from being close to the late Middle Saint Realm, breaking through in one fell swoop to the late Great Saint Realm. And all of this was thanks to the devouring, demonic art. In nearly a year, the young women he had sucked dry into dried corpses were countless. Relying on the essence, chi, and blood of those young women, he successfully attained his current cultivation level. Such progress was something his former self wouldn't even dare to dream of. However, although I have broken through to the late Great Saint Realm now, I might not necessarily be able to defeat that Lington. After all, a year ago, he was already at the Middle Great Saint Realm. Continue cultivating. Thinking of Duan Lingtian, it was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over Zhao Ji's head, causing him to shiver and sober up. Zhao Ji. Just as Zhao Ji was about to search for his next target, an aged voice sounded, and immediately afterward, a figure appeared before Zhao Ji. Hall Master Zhu. Seeing the newcomer, Zhao Ji grinned. I have already broken through to the late Great Saint Realm. How is your progress? Have you broken through to the Middle Earth Saint Realm? Half a year ago, Zhu Luqi, whose cultivation was at the peak human saint realm, successfully broke through to the early Earth Saint Realm he had longed for, relying on the devouring, demonic art, and subsequently continued to advance rapidly. Still a little short. Zhu Luqi shook his head. I need at least 3 more months. Then you're much slower than me, Zhao Ji said, a little smug, when he heard Zhu Luqi's words. In the same year, he broke through from the Mid-Saint Realm to the late Great Saint Realm, continuously breaking through 5 cultivation levels. Of course, in reality, he only broke through 4 cultivation levels, because even without cultivating the devouring demonic art, he would have been able to break through to the late Mid-Saint Realm in a short time. However, even if he only broke through 4 levels, compared to Zhu Luqi's single-level breakthrough, he was still much stronger. As far as I know, the essence, energy, and blood of young women you devoured are much more than what I devoured. Zhao Ji grew even more smug as he spoke. Although I've devoured more essence, energy, and blood from young women than you have this past year, what was your cultivation level before, and what was mine? Can they even be compared? Zhu Luqi snorted coldly, feeling that Zhao Ji was truly shameless, actually comparing his cultivation progress over the past year to his own. Zhao Ji was originally just a martial artist at the Mid-Saint Realm. By devouring the essence, energy, and blood of young women to cultivate the devouring demonic art, his progress was naturally astonishingly fast. As for him, he was already at the peak of the human saint realm. To break through, even with the devouring demonic art as a reliance, it wasn't that easy. To break through to the early Earth Saint realm in just 1 year, and not just an ordinary early Earth Saint realm, he was already very satisfied. Hall Master Zhu, I truly understand you less and less. Originally, with your cultivation, if you had extensively devoured the essence, energy, and blood of virgins to cultivate the devouring demonic art, your progress would definitely be faster. But you insist on not touching those virgins, and you even forbid me from touching them in front of you, which is truly baffling. Zhao Ji said, I really can't understand what the difference is between ordinary young women and those virgins. Humph. Zhu Luqi snorted again, but did not respond to Zhao Ji's words. In Zhu Luqi's heart, there was a secret known only to himself. A long time ago, he had a very lovely daughter, left behind by his deceased wife before she passed away. He cherished this daughter, who his wife had given her life for during childbirth, treating her completely like a little princess. However, unpredictable events happen in life, and misfortune can strike at any moment. When his daughter was 16 years old, Because he was at a critical juncture in his cultivation breakthrough, he wasn't with his daughter, which led to his daughter being defiled by a profligate son. When he emerged from his seclusion, what he saw was his daughter's corpse, long dead, and a suicide note left by his daughter. His daughter had chosen to commit suicide precisely because her purity had been defiled. Although he later annihilated the entire family of that profligate son, his daughter could not be brought back. It was precisely because his only relative had died that Zhu Luqi devoted himself entirely to cultivation, leading to his achievements today. He naturally understood the principle that cultivating the devouring demonic art and devouring the essence, energy, and blood of virgins would lead to faster progress. However, whenever he saw those innocent virgins, he couldn't help but be reminded of his own daughter, so he simply couldn't bring himself to harm them. Not only could he not do it himself, but even when he saw Zhao Ji harming virgins, he would intervene to stop him. Just like now, he had intended to rush over to stop Zhao Ji, but he was still too late. Whoosh! As Zhu Luqi raised his hand, a cloud of dirt rose from the ground, covering the dried corpse of the virgin lying there, allowing her to rest in peace. Unreasonable. Although it wasn't the first time Zhao Ji had seen Zhu Luqi do this, he was still somewhat speechless, as he simply couldn't understand why Zhu Luqi was so kind to virgins. Hall Master Zhu, it's better if we don't meet again in the future. Zhao Ji gave Zhu Luqi a deep look, then seemed to transform into a gust of wind, leaving quickly, as if avoiding a plague god. Zhu Luqi wasn't annoyed and simply flew off in another direction. If he could, he also didn't wish to encounter Zhao Ji. Because once he encountered Zhao Ji, if Zhao Ji's target was virgins, he would instinctively feel compelled to intervene. Although those virgins were not his daughter, they constantly reminded him of that unbearable past incident. This had almost become Zhu Luqi's inner demon. If Zhu Luqi had been as reckless as Zhao Ji from the beginning, even harming virgins, even if he hadn't broken through to the Mid-Earth Saint realm by now, he would certainly be very close. Now, Zhu Luqi still needed to strive for nearly 3 more months to be confident in breaking through. It must be said that Zhu Luqi and Zhao Ji were very low-key, and the area they chose in the western part of the Martial Saint Land's lower domain was extremely remote. In this area, let alone quasi-third-rate forces, there were no fourth-rate or fifth-rate forces. Therefore, for an entire year, the commotion they caused here did not spread out. However, there are no walls that don't leak wind. Another half a year passed, and the strange occurrences in a remote area in the western part of the Martial Saint Land's lower domain finally spread. The one who spread this strange news was a native of the western region. 3 years ago, he had gone out to explore the world, and only now had he returned. However, upon his return, he discovered that his hometown, a small village like a paradise, had turned into ruins, and amidst the ruins, he could vaguely see many long-dead bodies. Other bodies were normal. But strangely, the bodies of the young women had all been sucked dry into mummified corpses. What happened? The strange scene before him completely exceeded his imagination, even making him temporarily forget the grief of losing his loved ones. Immediately after, he began to search the surroundings. Everywhere he went, the bustling towns and villages that were once vibrant with life had all turned into ruins. And the bodies inside were the same as those in the small village where he was, except for the young women's bodies, which were dried corpses. Everyone else's bodies were normal. This is insane. Finally, he dared not continue his search and fled from the remote western area as if escaping for his life. And the news was spread by him. Hey, have you heard? The people in the towns and villages in the west were all wiped out. But, strangely, the bodies of those young women all turned into dried corpses. Very bizarre. Dried corpses? What kind of dried corpses? If you want to know, why don't you go and see for yourself? As time passed, similar discussions could be heard everywhere in some cities bordering the remote western region. In this world, there is no shortage of curious people. Driven by curiosity, many people flocked in groups to the remote western region. Only when they witnessed everything with their own eyes did they realize that the news they had received earlier was true. My heavens! Who did this? These young women are truly pitiful. Not only were they killed, but they were also turned into dried corpses. No. Look, there seemed to be no wounds on these young women's bodies, completely different from the other corpses. Moreover, their bodies are unclothed. Do you think it could have been done by a demonic cultivator? If it was done by a demonic cultivator, the demonic cultivation technique that demonic cultivator practiced is too cruel, isn't it? Among the curious, there were many well-informed individuals. As they deduced, a conclusion emerged. A demonic cultivator who practiced a dehumanizing demonic cultivation technique was rampaging through this remote western region. On the Tao Martial Saint land, there is no shortage of demonic cultivators, and demonic cultivators are also recognized entities on the Tao Martial Saint land. However, the recognized demonic cultivators are all those who practice relatively normal demonic cultivation techniques. Those demonic cultivators who practice dehumanizing demonic cultivation techniques are like rats in the street, hated by everyone on the Tao Martial Saint land. If one person spreads the news, those who hear it might be half-believing. However, when this news is confirmed by hundreds or even thousands of people and then spread, it undoubtedly becomes a foregone conclusion. I remember, almost 2 years ago, a quasi-third-rate force, Xiankong Mansion, once released a piece of news saying that the devouring demonic art had reappeared. And the person who obtained the devouring demonic art was the former hall master of the Xiankong Mansion's heavenly hall, Zhu Luqi. It is said that the devouring demonic art is a top-tier demonic cultivation technique that is dehumanizing, primarily cultivating by devouring the essence, energy, and blood of young women. Any young woman captured and used for cultivation by someone practicing the devouring demonic art will eventually turn into a dried corpse. Do you think what happened in the remote western region could be related to the devouring demonic art? Now that you mention it, I remember too. If it's the devouring demonic art, then everything can be explained. So, the people killed in the western region, the young women who were sucked dry into mummified corpses, are all the masterpieces of the former hall master of Xiankong Mansion's heavenly hall, Zhu Luqi? 9 times out of 10, yes. Before long, someone connected the events in the western region with the devouring demonic art. For a time, the former hall master of Xiankong Mansion's heavenly hall, Zhu Luqi, bore all the blame, because the people of the Tao Martial Saint land's lower domain only knew that he had obtained the devouring demonic art, and no one knew that Zhao Ji had also obtained the devouring demonic art. Hall Master Zhu, the matter has been exposed. It seems we'll have to lie low for a while. Do you have any plans? While the outside world was in an uproar, in a remote, desolate stone forest in the western part of the Tao Martial Saint land's lower domain, Zhao Ji and Zhu Luqi met again. Clearly, they already knew that their actions had been exposed. What plans could I have? Hide. I'm not like you. After cultivating the devouring demonic art and harming so many virgins, you can still swagger back to Xiankong Mansion. Zhu Luqi said in a deep voice. Haha. In that case, Hall Master Zhu, I'll take my leave first. Also, please take good care of Su Jing. After all, we haven't fully mastered the devouring demonic art yet. Zhao Ji specifically reminded Zhu Luqi before leaving. This area is no longer safe to stay. After Zhao Ji left, Zhu Luqi also departed. Zhu Lu had self-awareness. Although he had broken through to the Earth Saint realm now, there were still many people in the lower province of the Tao Martial Saint land who could defeat him. Not to mention the guardians at the Heaven Saint realm level sent by the first-rate forces in the Tao Martial Saint land to the lower province. Even the leaders of the quasi-third-rate forces, Qingyan Mansion and Inshan Black Market, were powerful existences who could easily crush him with a flick of their hands. It was said that the cultivation of those two had already reached the peak of the Earth Saint realm. Besides them, there were also leaders of other quasi-third-rate forces, including Meng Qing, the mansion master of Xiankong Mansion, whose weakest cultivation was at the late Earth Saint realm. Following them were figures like Feng Bai, the vice leader of the Yinshan black market, who were veteran Earth Saint realm powerhouses. Existences at this level were only half a step away from the late Earth Saint realm, a level he was currently unable to reach. Feng Bai. Now I have also broken through to the Earth Saint realm. The day I break through to the late Earth Saint realm will be your death day. Zhu Lu's eyes gleamed with fierce light. He cultivated the devouring demonic art, precisely to seek revenge on Feng Bai. As time passed, Zhu Lu gradually calmed down. However, for the next period, it's not suitable to be so high profile. During this time, I will first focus on martial arts techniques and divine abilities. The divine ability in Zhu Lu's mouth was the divine ability recorded in the devouring demonic art. That divine ability was not a low-level, useless divine ability. Even Su Jing had not yet come into contact with it, because only existences above the human saint realm could try to comprehend and cultivate it. Not long after, Zhu Lu also left the western part of the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. At the same time, news about the appearance of the devouring demonic art spread wider and wider. Eventually, more than half of the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land was filled with this news. The devouring demonic art? What is the devouring demonic art? As the news of the devouring demonic art rampaging in the western region spread, the devouring demonic art became completely famous. Of course, many people did not know about the existence of the devouring demonic art beforehand. After all, it had been a long time since the era when the devouring demonic art was once notorious. Nowadays, almost all those who still knew about the existence of the devouring demonic art were people from various forces passed down from that era. The devouring demonic art cultivates by devouring the essence, qi, and blood of young women. If it devours the essence, qi, and blood of virgins, the cultivation effect is even better. Any woman whose essence, qi, and blood are devoured will turn into a dried corpse. As details about the cultivation of the devouring demonic art spread, more than half of the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land fell into panic. Especially those young women and virgins, they wished they could dig a hole and hide in it. Because they were the first targets of the demonic cultivators who practiced the devouring demonic art. And while more than half of the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land was in panic, various fourth-rate forces and quasi-third-rate forces naturally also received the news. Does that Zhu Lu want to become a public enemy? Just like that demonic cultivator who cultivated the devouring demonic art back then? Many high-ranking officials of the fourth-rate forces cursed out loud. I had the good fortune to meet Mansion Master Mengqing of Xiankong Mansion once. He is a very upright person. I really can't understand how a scoundrel like Zhu Lu could appear in Xiankong Mansion. Many high-ranking officials of quasi-third-rate forces said. As top forces in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, the quasi-third-rate forces naturally could not stand by and do nothing when they learned that the devouring demonic art had begun to wreak havoc in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. In less than 2 years, even if Zhu Lu cultivated the devouring demonic art, his current strength definitely won't be that strong. We must eliminate him before he grows. If we cannot eliminate him in time, the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land will surely suffer greatly. The leader of a quasi-third-rate force declared that they would eliminate Zhu Lu, and the leaders of other quasi-third-rate forces also issued orders one by one, sending strong individuals to the remote areas in the western region. The fourth-rate forces cooperated one after another. Although the current powerhouses in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land did not experience the previous rampage of the devouring demonic art, they still learned about the terror of the devouring demonic art and the demonic cultivators who cultivated it from the handbooks passed down by their ancestors. Back then, that demonic cultivator who cultivated the devouring demonic art, with his cultivation at the peak of the Earth Saint Realm, managed to kill several peak Earth Saint Realm powerhouses and successfully escape under the siege of multiple peak Earth Saint Realm powerhouses and more than a dozen late Earth Saint Realm powerhouses. Even Xian Kong Mansion sent out 2 protectors. As for the Mansion Master Meng Qing, he did not leave because he had to oversee Xian Kong Mansion. Not long after the 2 protectors of Xian Kong Mansion left, Meng Qing, who was pacing back and forth with a frown in the courtyard, felt a gust of wind assault his eyes. Immediately after, an aged, elderly figure appeared before him. This old man was a one-armed elder. If Duan Ling Tian were here, he would definitely recognize at a glance that this one-armed elder was none other than the old man guarding the spirit pool in the Heaven Palace, and also the master of the protector Gu Xiayun, and the grandmaster of his senior brother Gu Li. Senior uncle. Facing the old man, even though Meng Qing was the mansion master of Xian Kong Mansion, he dared not neglect him in the slightest, immediately bowing in salute. This old man before him was his master's senior brother, and he was also the highest-ranking person in Xian Kong Mansion today. Mansion Master, there is no need for such courtesy. I have come only for one matter. Please allow me to leave Xian Kong Mansion to seek out Zhu Lu. I wish to personally eliminate him. The seemingly amiable old man, as he spoke, emitted waves of coldness from his body, and his eyes gleamed with a chilling light. Senior uncle, the 2 protectors have already gone. There's no need for you to go, right? Meng Qing said with a bitter expression. It wasn't that he doubted the strength of this old man, but rather that he couldn't bear to see this old man, at such an advanced age, still running around for Xian Kong Mansion. Mansion Master, that brat Zhu Lu, speaking of it, he also cultivated with me for a period of time. Although he and I do not have the name of master and disciple, we have the reality of master and disciple. It is my unshirkable responsibility to clean up the sect. The old man insisted. Since senior uncle insists, then I naturally have no objection. However, please act within your capabilities. Nearly 2 years have passed, and Zhu Lu has been cultivating the devouring demonic art so unscrupulously. His cultivation is very likely to have already broken through to the Earth Saint realm. As he spoke, Meng Qing couldn't help but remind him. What? Is the sect master doubting that this old bone of mine is not as good as that brat Zhu Lu? As the old man spoke, a powerful aura extended from his body, enveloping Meng Qing, causing Meng Qing's expression to change, and his eyes revealed a look of ecstasy. Senior uncle, you've broken through? Whoosh. However, in response to Meng Qing's ecstatic inquiry, what the old man gave him was a fleeting back. Xian Kong Mansion, Heaven Palace. Whoosh. A swift figure came from the direction of the main mansion, and in a flash, arrived at a platform on the mountainside of the Heaven Palace, standing in front of an independent courtyard. The person who arrived was precisely Gu Li. What are you all doing sneaking around here at my junior brother Ling Tian's place? Gu Li let out a low shout, and with a raise of his hand, the void vibrated, and several invisible forces extended out. In a flash, they grabbed several people hidden to the side and threw them heavily onto the ground. Wah! Wah! The few people who were thrown out were several Xian Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage. Each of them was pressed by that powerful invisible force, spitting out blood. Human Saint Realm. One of the Xian Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage, whose cultivation was higher, suddenly changed his expression. When he looked at Gu Li again, it was as if he had seen a ghost. Gu Li, you've broken through to the Human Saint Realm? Xiaodong, it seems your 5th ranking on the Xian Kong ranking is quite well-deserved. You can actually tell that I've broken through. Gu Li swept a faint glance at the Xian Kong Mansion disciple from the Zhao family lineage who spoke, and said, This Xian Kong Mansion disciple from the Zhao family lineage who spoke was precisely the one ranked 5th on the Xian Kong ranking, and he had broken through to the peak of the Great Saint Realm some time ago. It was precisely because of this that he was able to immediately confirm that Gu Li's cultivation had broken through to the Human Saint Realm. Even though he had only recently broken through to the peak of the Great Saint Realm, he could not be so casually wounded by someone who was also at the peak of the Great Saint Realm. Only an existence above the human saint realm would have the ability to play with him like this. Therefore, he almost didn't need to think to confirm that Guli had already broken through to the human saint realm. Human saint realm? The other few Xian Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage, hearing Zhao Dong's words, were so scared that they almost fainted. A human saint realm powerhouse was a powerful existence who could crush them with a single finger. Senior brother Guli, congratulations. At this moment, the door of the room in the courtyard in front opened, and then a handsome young man in white walked out slowly from inside. The young man had a smile on his face, making people feel as if they were basking in a spring breeze. Junior brother Ling Tian, you've also come out of seclusion? Guli said in surprise. Did I come at such a coincidence? I came out of seclusion half a month ago. Recently, I've been comprehending martial arts techniques, so I can detect any movement outside at the first moment. The young man who walked out of the room was precisely Duan Ling Tian. Because he had disguised himself and changed his identity, Duan Ling Tian's clothes were no longer a monotonous purple, but were frequently changed. Junior brother Ling Tian, these guys, how do you want to deal with them? Guli narrowed his eyes and looked at Zhao Dong and the others, seeking Duan Ling Tian's opinion. Don't mess around. Don't forget the Xian Kong Mansion's rule against infighting among fellow disciples. Seeing Guli look over, Zhao Dong's face was filled with panic. The other few Xian Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage, one by one, looked at Duan Ling Tian with pleading eyes, clearly wanting Duan Ling Tian to show mercy. At this moment, they seemed to have completely forgotten that they had offended Guli precisely because they were monitoring Duan Ling Tian. Let them go. Duan Ling Tian glanced at the several Xian Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage and said indifferently, why haven't you gotten lost yet? Hearing Duan Ling Tian's words and seeing the several Xian Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage still sitting there stupidly, Guli immediately glared. After the several disciples from the Zhao family lineage fled in panic, Guli walked slowly into the courtyard and said with a look of displeasure, I came out of seclusion today, originally wanting to give my old man a surprise, but I didn't expect him to actually not be here. So, senior brother Guli, you came to find me first thing to share this surprise? Duan Ling Tian asked with a smile. Guli nodded. The news of senior brother Guli's breakthrough to the human saint realm will probably spread throughout Xian Kong Mansion before long through the mouths of those guys just now. As far as I know, even the mansion master had not stepped into the human saint realm at your age. Duan Ling Tian praised. All right, stop praising me. It's fine if others praise me, but when you praise me, it just doesn't feel right no matter how I hear it. Guli hurriedly waved his hand and said, in front of a freak like you, who dares to mention talent? By the way, as I walked over, I noticed the atmosphere in the mansion is a bit off. Do you know what happened? The devouring demonic art has reappeared. Duan Ling Tian said with a heavy expression. He had already come out of seclusion half a month ago, so he had heard about some of the things that had happened outside recently. Didn't the devouring demonic art appear a long time ago? Guli asked in confusion. Nearly 2 years ago, their Xian Kong Mansion took action against Chongshao Mansion for the sake of the devouring demonic art. Of course, initially, they didn't know that demonic path cultivation technique was the devouring demonic art. By the time they found out, the key figure, the young mansion master of Chongshao Mansion, Su Jing, had already been taken away by the former hall master of the Heavenly Hall, Zhu Lu. The remote areas in the west have now become a dead zone. Almost everyone in that area is dead, especially those young women, all of whom were sucked into mummified corpses. Duan Ling Tian said with a heavy expression, now, this matter has spread throughout most of the lower domain. Including the young female disciples of our Xian Kong Mansion, young women in the lower domain are all in a state of panic. Because the situation there is similar to the places where demonic cultivators who practiced the devouring demonic art back then ran rampant, it can almost be certain that it was done by someone who also practiced the devouring demonic art. Originally, Su Jing of Chongshao Mansion was the only person who practiced the devouring demonic art. However, after Su Jing was rescued, the person practicing the devouring demonic art is no longer just one person. Duan Lingtian said. You mean? Hall Master Zhu has already started practicing the devouring demonic art, and the things that happened in the remote areas of the West were his doing. Gu Li sucked in a breath of cold air, not expecting such a major event to have occurred during his seclusion. Su Jing's body might be in a coma now, but his remnant soul, which hasn't fully recovered, wouldn't find it difficult to communicate with people. So, for him to pass the devouring demonic art to Hall Master Zhu is a very simple matter. Duan Lingtian speculated. Perhaps when Hall Master Zhu took Su Jing away, he had already negotiated terms and reached an agreement with Su Jing, using the rescue of Su Jing as a condition to exchange for the devouring demonic art. I really didn't expect a person could change so fast. In the past, Hall Master Zhu's temper was quite good. But now, Gu Li sighed. Sometimes, hatred can destroy a person. Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed as he spoke with a heavy face. Zhu Lu, the former hall master of the Heavenly Hall of Xiankong Mansion, although he wasn't very familiar with him, he had interacted with him, and his first impression was that of a kind elder. However, it was such a kind elder who, because of the humiliation from the Yinshan black market deputy leader Feng Bai, had the seeds of hatred planted in his heart. This seed, after the devouring demonic art appeared, could no longer be suppressed and completely broke through the soil. The seeds of hatred had already sprouted. What Zhu Lu had to do next was to desperately devour the essence, qi, and blood of young women, cultivate the devouring demonic art, and increase his cultivation at the fastest speed, until he could seek revenge against the Yinshan black market deputy leader Feng Bai. However, that matter was indeed too much on the part of that Yinshan black market deputy leader Feng Bai. If I were Hall Master Zhu and was humiliated like that by him, I wouldn't be able to take it either. When Zhu Lu was humiliated by Feng Bai back then, Gu Li was also present. Every time he thought of it, he couldn't help but feel indignant for Zhu Lu. If you were Hall Master Zhu, senior brother Gu Li, knowing full well that you could never seek revenge through normal cultivation, how would you act in the face of the temptation of the devouring demonic art? Duan Lingtian asked. I might have made the same choice as Hall Master Zhu. Gu Li sighed. To me, that kind of humiliation is more painful than killing me. Junior brother Lingtian, what about you? What would you do? If your talent wasn't that high and you completely put yourself in Hall Master Zhu's shoes. If I were Hall Master Zhu, I would also wish to grind Feng Bai's bones into ashes. However, I probably wouldn't practice the devouring demonic art. After all, do not do unto others what you would not have them do unto you. Those young women are, after all, innocent. Duan Lingtian sighed. If it were him from his previous life on Earth, he would definitely have made the same choice as Gu Li. But in this life, having walked this path and experienced the warmth and coldness of the world, he was unwilling to destroy those young women for the sake of a personal vendetta. You'd rather not seek revenge than practice the devouring demonic art? Gu Li asked again. Of course not. A cold light flashed in Duan Lingtian's eyes, revealing a bit of ferocity, being so wantonly humiliated and having one's dignity trampled upon. How could such hatred not be avenged? However, even if it's impossible for me to personally seek revenge through normal cultivation, I would seek revenge through other means. For example, finding a way to do it through someone else's hands. Duan Lingtian said. Through someone else's hands? Gu Li was taken aback. How do you do it through someone else's hands? For example, finding a way to kidnap the family members of that Yinshan black market leader or the mansion master of Qingyan Mansion, using their relatives as leverage to make them take action against Feng Bai. Once Feng Bai is dead, I would release their relatives. Duan Lingtian said. In this way, even if I am eventually killed by them, I would accept it. Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, while Gu Li felt a sense of solemn respect, he couldn't help but sigh. If Hall Master Zhu had heard these words of yours before he rescued Su Jing, how good would that have been? Senior Brother Guli, I was just speaking casually. To kidnap the relatives of the Inshan black market leader and the mansion master of Qingyan Mansion, just thinking about it, one knows it's not an easy task. Duan Lingtian shook his head and said, so, even if Hall Master Zhu had heard my words beforehand, he might not have successfully sought revenge through this method. In the past, it might not have worked, but as far as I know, that mansion master of Qingyan Mansion is a person who values emotions extremely highly. In addition, I heard that a few years ago, he even brought many relatives from his hometown back to Qingyan Mansion. Guli said, the relatives he brought back to Qingyan Mansion are many. It's impossible to send an expert at the peak human saint realm or above to protect every single one of them. With Hall Master Zhu's strength at the peak human saint realm, kidnapping one of the relatives of the mansion master of Qingyan Mansion wouldn't be a difficult task. A few years ago, he brought many relatives from his hometown back to Qingyan Mansion. Hearing Guli's words, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be stunned, then asked again, Senior Brother Guli, it's said that the mansion master of Qingyan Mansion is very young. From his rise in the Dao Wu Sacred Land lower domain until now, it hasn't been 20 years, yet he led Qingyan Mansion to stand at the peak of the lower domain, on par with the Inshan black market. Yes, that mansion master of Qingyan Mansion is a legendary figure in our Dao Wu Sacred Land lower domain. He is also the person I admire most so far. Guli nodded. Perhaps the leader of the Inshan black market is not inferior to him in terms of talent and strength, but that leader of the Inshan black market was fully nurtured by the Inshan black market since childhood. On the other hand, that mansion master of Qingyan Mansion merely came from a mortal continent. For someone who came out of a mortal continent to achieve such results, it's already enough to become an eternal masterpiece of the Dao Wu Sacred Land lower domain. Speaking to this point, Guli had a face full of emotion. Mortal continent. Duan Lingtian was dazed. That mansion master of Qingyan Mansion comes from a mortal continent. In this instant, other information about the mansion master of Qingyan Mansion began to echo in Duan Lingtian's mind again. His rise in the Dao Wu Sacred Land lower domain hasn't been 20 years. A few years ago, he brought back many relatives from his hometown on the mortal continent. Dugu in the north, Ruffling in the south, propping up the heavens and earth of the lower domain. Ruffling in the south refers to the mansion master of Qingyan Mansion. Ruffling. Back then, little Feier was taken away by father's subordinates. To be able to calmly take little Feier away from the fifth-rate force, Bibohan residence, the strength of that person under father must not be weak. Could it be? An astonishing thought suddenly popped into Duan Lingtian's mind. Of course, that was just his speculation and could not be confirmed yet. Junior Brother Lingtian, what's wrong with you? Seeing Duan Lingtian suddenly glare and his body begin to tremble, Guli's face was full of doubt, not knowing why this Junior Brother Lingtian would suddenly become like this when he was fine just now. Gu. Senior Brother Guli. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath, trying hard to suppress his restless mood, looked at Guli, and asked with a heavy face, do you know the name of that mansion master of Qingyan Mansion? Guli originally thought Duan Lingtian was being so serious because he wanted to say something solemn, but he didn't expect it to be such a question, which immediately made him feel a bit amused. What? Junior Brother Lingtian, you still don't know the name of that mansion master of Qingyan Mansion? Senior Brother Guli, tell me. Duan Lingtian took another deep breath, his body trembling more and more violently. At this time, Guli also noticed Duan Lingtian's abnormality. Although he didn't know the reason, he stopped joking and responded directly. That mansion master of Qingyan Mansion is named Duan Ruffling. Perhaps you haven't heard of his name, but you should have heard the saying Dugu in the north, Ruffling in the south, propping up the heavens and earth of the lower domain. Ruffling in the south refers to him,